Greetings of peace and love, everyone. This is Tahuti Ma'atra. And yes, I have been AWOL. I have been AWOL because a lot has been going on in my life. And the most important thing that has been going on in my life really came out of nowhere. Now, many, if not most of you, know that I'm currently in the last stages of a very long, bitter, foul, nefarious, insidious legal divorce that was initiated by my ex-wife out of frustration, bitterness, anger, revenge, and just about everything else, every other negative emotion. But at any rate, I'm at the tail end. It was a great experience. I have learned so much, and a lot of that which I learned in this legal divorce proceeding, I will be sharing here on this particular account. But anyway, one of the reasons why I have been AWOL, and especially from this new account, which I do apologize to my listeners. I know that there are certain people who really look forward to my presentations, to my broadcast. But one of the things that played a role in myself being or going AWOL as of recently deals with this case here. In a twist of fate, in this particular case, I ended up with physical custody of my 3 sons. I went to court 3 times in the month of May. May 2nd, May 10th, May 17th. And I prevailed in all of those hearings. And yes, it was a very great feeling. You feel for the other person because you understand what they are attempting to do, but nevertheless, it's wrong. But the person is acting on negative emotion. The person is hurt. You know, the person is not grounded. You know, the person's underdevelopment manifests in this particular action. I mean, divorce takes place in court, and court is adversarial, and divorce is the most adversarial of any and all things to be litigated or adjudicated in a court of law. However, I prevailed like crazy in the month of May, and several days later, I ended up hearing from the ex, and it was in regards to pretty much throwing in the towel. And the first step of that was getting my boys here in Southern California. And I'll be honest, I had no idea that that would transpire so soon. In all due honesty, people, I got used to traveling to the Bay Area twice a month. I saw the boys the second and fourth weekends of every month, in addition to a spring break, summer break, and there's summer vacation, spring break, and winter break. Yeah, so in all due honesty, I got used to that. You know, when the case started, there wasn't much time. You know, it wasn't much time for me. It was just the what they call the routine visitation, and that worked for me because the ex-wife left a former business that we had together in limbo. And it was pretty much up to me to correct matters, you know. That's what you do as a responsible businessman. But it was just so easy for her to just bounce, just abdicate her position, her various corporate official positions, including CFO, in addition to being a director and a host of other things. As business owners, we took on a lot of roles. So when you have one of your partners, a 50% partner who just abdicates, you know, if you have integrity, which I do, you have to do something about it. You can't force another person to do anything. So I had to clean up her mess, you know, pick up her slack, you know, in addition to deal with my own duties, you know. So suffice to say, people, it was rough, you know, so it worked for me. The earlier parts of the divorce in general and pertaining to child visitation in particular it worked for me. It really, 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 really worked for me. It's such a trip that, when you are righteous and you live your life predicated upon the spiritual values of life, it's amazing how things work out to your advantage. I'm quite sure she and her attorneys thought that they were socking it to me. Less time, more money for you. But as a wise man, I was buying my time because I'm an entrepreneur, so my livelihood comes by way of what I do. And you guys know that today, that is TahutiMatraHerbs.com. That is my exclusive platform by which my exclusive products are sold. Not just the product, but services as well, too. So TahutiMatraHerbs.com is my exclusive platform by which all Tahuti Matra services and products are sold. So as an entrepreneur, I have to handle my business. No one else puts the butter on my toast. I do that. And let me tell you, people, it's night and day from being an employee contrasted with being an employer. And in my case, I am employer and employee. So there's a lot of work to do. And as an accountable person, as a real man, I had to do what I had to do. So I'm quite sure to her and her attorneys, they thought they were really socking it to me. No, I was just using wisdom. And I had to dig myself out of a ditch that I allowed others to dig while I was concentrating on doing my part, my duty for this past business. And you guys know what that was. That was those YouTube videos and those articles and traveling around the nation and going to England and giving lectures. You guys remember all that good stuff in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. Those were job duties. So in addition to those particular job duties, I had the job duties of CEO, director, operating manager, manager of production, and a host of other offices and positions and titles. So anyway, folks, getting back on course, I was AWOL as of recently because I ended up with physical custody of my sons, of my 3 sons. I am the primary caretaker, and it came out of nowhere. And in all due honesty, after that May 17th hearing in which her long pending request for order to increase child support and alimony or spousal support was denied by a very good judge. Very, 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 very good judge. After her long pending RFO to increase child support and alimony was denied for the second time, mind you. And again, by a very good judge. I have to stress that because, it's not every day that you come across people in government that are really good and that are really by the books, predicated upon a personal integrity. That means a lot to me. And I'm going to stress on that in future shows. Very, very, very important that people in government in positions of power and who don't abuse that power and do the right thing, we have to take our hats off to them because, people, there's a lot of corruption, in high places and in high offices, even like right now with Donald Trump. Corruption, and it is horrible. It's just so horrible because it makes people apathetic. It erodes public confidence. It is just horrible. It's just not good for a stable society. So I think that acknowledging government officials who do the right thing, who operate with integrity, is very important that we take our hats off to those individuals and give them their props. We're quick to point out the negative, but not so quick to point out the positive. And that's what I plan to do anytime I'm discussing something dealing with government, dealing with politics. All government officials are not corrupt. All politicians are not corrupt. All corporate CEOs are not corrupt. Now, certainly enough of them are, but not all of them. So I tend to focus on the positive because what you focus on is what you end up getting. And so that's how I operate in life. And so that's why I do receive a lot of good despite what's going on in the world, despite all the negativity about family court. And trust me, I understand it, people. I understand how that system is inherently flawed, and I understand the sexism, the genderism. It's not on the books, but it is in that system. And in a future episode, I'll be able to go off into that. But I do understand that. But my point is, despite that being the fact, I prevailed. I prevailed in that flawed national family court system. I prevailed, greatly prevailed. I prevailed in ways that, in all due honesty, I'm shocked. Because again, I did not expect to have my boys so soon. I knew it was coming, but I was working a plan. But anyway, after May 17th being defeated, a couple of days later, it was throw in the towel time. And the first step of throwing in the towel for her, because she really should have never done that in the first place. Every single person that I know and that knows about this case says the same exact thing. What was that woman thinking about taking you to court? And all I can say is, hey, and I know this is probably going to sound sexist, but she's a woman. And women are naturally emotional creatures. So emotions go in two directions. So when emotions are negative, it's a wrap. I mean, men, we too are emotional, but men are more logical. Women are more emotional. This doesn't mean that women are not logical, and this doesn't mean that men are emotional. We both have it. It's like testosterone and progesterone. Men have more testosterone and androsterone than women. However, women do have minute amount of both of those male-specific hormones. But likewise, men too, we're dominant in testosterone and androsterone, but we too have those minute proportions of estrogen and progesterone. And some men, let me get off that there, but we can keep it straight. But women are emotional, and this particular woman was very, very, very emotional. And our separation, I don't know what it did to this woman. It just went deep, and it just brought out everything in this person. There are just some things you just can't see a mile away. You see the red flags, and so you know the defects and the flaws. These are the not so positive attributes that all human beings have, but man, a separation, divorce can really bring some things out in people, not just women, but men too. You have to understand that everything that we say about women pertaining to family court and divorce, what have you, it happens with men as well, just not as much. And again, my position is it happens more so with women because women are naturally emotional creatures, and separation, divorce, just things that deal with matters of the heart, love and romance and just all these these things, that are important. I'm laughing, but they are important. They weigh more with women. I think these things are just more conducive to the female nature more so than the male nature. Women being more soft, more loving, more nurturing than men. Doesn't make women better than men, but these are just particular attributes that women are dominant in. These are just natural dominant female expressions. And so when you're in a situation whereby there is heartache and pain, and you're in an adversarial facility or a jurisdiction, really, you're going to get people acting not their best. Negative attributes are highly manifested. And so that's what I experienced there. And because I understand it, it's okay. This is what this person has to do. This is what she felt she had to do, despite the fact that I disagree with a lot of actions displayed in this whole process. But it was something that she felt she had to do. And I played my role, people. That's all you can do in a scheme, in a drama, is just play your role. And I played my role, and I came out stronger than before I entered. So it's all good. Things worked out in my favor. I got my sons. I'm really happy about that. I actually just went back to the Bay Area I actually just went back to the Bay Area last Friday to drop them off for their summer vacation part with their mom. And we pretty much did a flip-flop. Everything I had, I gave to her. I drafted our agreement, which you can do here in the state of California pertaining to a stipulated agreement for child custody. It's a FL 355 form. That form is FL 355. FL in California stands for family law. In the state of California, we have various family law forms that have been approved by our judicial council, which the pro per litigant can access online and fill out those particular forms. And so this particular form that I drafted was the FL 355. I filled it out, but I drafted the agreement that had all of the essentials of child custody in it. And again, basically, I did a flip-flop. Everything that I had, I gave to her. So she has the weekend visitation, the second and the fourth weekend, the 2 weeks of spring vacation, the 1 or 2 weeks of winter break. She has 2 weeks of spring break, 2 weeks of 1 week. Yeah, I think it's 1 week because they're out of school only for 2 weeks. So whatever that is, it's half and half. So she gets 1 or 2 weeks of winter break, and she gets 5 weeks of summer vacation in even years and 3 weeks in odd years. But despite all of that, I'm so cool. I told her you could see them every single weekend. As a matter of fact, I told her, and I actually had this in writing, but just typical person of who she is, she destroyed all of that. I mean, that was something that I did see in her, that the self-recklessness, the sabotaging, self-sabotage I'd never seen that to that degree in my life. And that's how I knew I was going to prevail in this action here, because of her own actions. That was something that I did notice, but I didn't notice to this degree. I didn't think it would be to the point whereby you really get yourself messed up. Now, she is a Scorpio ascendant. She has a lot of Scorpio in her chart. And when the Scorpio is unskillful, the Scorpio will kill itself in an attempt to kill its opponent. Okay, that's one thing about the Scorpio. I, too, have Scorpio in my chart. I have my Jupiter's in Scorpio, but my ascendant or my rising is also in Scorpio. And because I have the astrological knowledge of Scorpio, I choose to be a skillful Scorpio, because I know Scorpio go to the left. If Scorpio acts out in negative fashion, the consequences can be dire, and not just for the opponent, but for the Scorpio or the Scorpion, him or herself. And that is applicable to my ex. So I knew it was just a matter of time before the girl did herself in. But at any rate, I told her, look, you can see them anytime you want to. I just need advance notice. Give me 1 day notice. If you want them every single weekend, you got them. Because I'm not like her, And as Tommy Sotomayor said in a video a couple of years ago, that men, we operate different than women. Women, for the most part, get vindictive, and they will use the child or the children as pawns to punish the man. And I don't care what anybody says. I have mastered United States family law, family court system. So I don't care what anybody says. That is irrefutable. The facts, the stats, the case histories are out there. And I spent a lot of time, even to this day, even with this case being over with, for the most part, I still get my study on like when this case began. And so I sit out in family court and I observe the judges. I observe the female judges. I observe the female judges contrasted to observing the male judges. I observe the female parties contrasted with the male party. I go in there and I observe, because there's so much going on about family court and gender bias and how men get screwed royally and with no Vaseline in family court, and children end up with the mother, and women end up with child support, and women file the majority of the false domestic violence charges. And I mean, people, it's just a whole bunch of stuff, and I've researched it. I've gone through it. I've witnessed it in the Los Angeles Superior Court, the family court division. People, it's all factual and it's all true. And if you think it's not, and if you think I'm just, choosing to be biased and attacking the ex-wife, who just happens to be a female, what have you, that's your prerogative, but you're wrong. And I challenge you to go to family court in any city, especially a large city, New York, Detroit, Chicago, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Boston, and others. You sit in court and you observe. Give yourself a good for most people that may be too long. Even I just give yourself an hour. Just sit in family court for 1 hour and just observe, and you will see. And there are hundreds of books written on divorce and custody and child support and domestic violence, what have you. Go to court and observe for yourself, and I guarantee you that you will agree with the contents of all of those books written by attorneys, former judges, and former family court conciliators. That stuff is all factual and all true. And my law library, my homebrary, which is my home library, the legal section of that library, oh my goodness, it's family law. The books pertaining to family law, divorce, child support, custody, judges, how to deal with DSO, daily settlement officers, everything dealing with family court. That part of the law library now dominates. It even dominates my criminal justice part of my library. And that part of my library was very extensive because of all that goes on in America, and especially since Trump has been in office. Not that, it started with Trump. I mean, Trayvon Martin was, I believe, under the Obama administration. But my point is, so much is going on with criminal justice and African Americans in general, African American males in particular, that my criminal justice part of my library, it used to dominate before family law. But the trip thing is, people, family law and criminal justice go hand in hand. When you reflect on the fact that non-custodial parents, mostly men, some women, but mostly men, can end up in jail. That's right. Certain individuals who are non-custodial parents in a family law case pertaining to child support and or alimony or spousal support can end up in jail. As a matter of fact, people, what's the guy name? He was on the show, The Dukes of Hazzard. Yep, The Dukes of Hazzard back in the late 70s, early 80s. John Snyder. Just recently, John Snyder of the Dukes of Hazzard fame went to jail because let me put it like this. I want to word it correctly because this is very important in law. How you word things is very correct. How you word things is very important in law. When you step foot in a court, it is very important that you speak correctly. And that's what I want to do, even though I'm not in court and speaking to people. But I know some of you listeners are on that path of becoming legally astute. And so it's very important that you understand that you must speak correctly. Very, 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 very important. Judges are very vigilant. They're very, very conscious to words. And so a lot of times the words are very tricky. Sometimes the words do us in because we don't understand the words. And this is really true in traffic court. And of course, that's a whole different topic. But John Snyder, he was found in contempt for failure to pay child support. And see, I want to be very correct here. Now, in your magazines, in your publications, it will state he failed to pay child support. But in reality, he was unable to pay child support. See, there's a difference, people. Failure to pay and inability to pay. But if you don't know law, attorneys, especially those unethical those unscrupulous attorneys, they're masters at converting words and phrases in a way that benefits them and their client or clients. Very good. So you got to look out for them. So John Snyder recently went to jail for failure to pay child support. But what it really was his inability to pay. But see, when you're in court, you're in a place whereby things can and often do get very tricky. So that man went to court, and I don't know if he was represented by professional counsel. I don't have any information if he was. I believe I read something whereby he went to court on his own. I know Tyrese Gibson went to court a few times, in his case, on his own. But right now, I'm unable to recall if Mr. Snyder was represented by counsel when he went to court to answer to failure to pay spousal support or alimony. That man had the inability. He was financially unable to pay. But when you don't know law, it can be flipped into failure to pay. And see, failure to pay is willful. See, if you don't have the ability to pay alimony or child support, it's not willful. And you have due process of law. You have due process of law in family court. Notice an opportunity to present meaningful evidence, testimony. You have that right. And men, despite having that right, go to court by themselves as lawyerless litigants, as pro per litigants, not knowing the system, not knowing the trickiness surrounding words and phrases, and a host of other things, such as the rules of evidence and the rules of court procedure and the rules of civil procedure. You know, there are several things that go together in a family law scenario, just in the whole court scenario. It's not just law. There are procedures. There are criminal procedures. There are civil procedures. There are court rules. We got law, procedures, and the rules. And all three go together. You can't argue the law if you don't follow the rules and the procedures. Very important. So Mr. Snyder went, and his true position was he didn't have the ability to pay. But it was translated as failure to pay, and that man ended up in jail. And see, where Mr. Snyder went wrong was when he admitted that he invested in a house that was damaged in a hurricane or a storm, I believe somewhere in the South, if I'm not mistaken, because that's where your hurricanes generally hit, Texas, Mississippi. And it may have been Mississippi, unless I'm thinking of Mr. Morgan Freeman, who owns a home in Mississippi that was damaged in, I believe, Hurricane Katrina. But Mr. Snyder admitted that he didn't have any money because his money went into rebuilding, remodeling, refurnishing his home. And that's where he messed up, people. Because, see, in court, they heard money. See, court hears, okay, you got money to do this. See, Mr. Snyder thinking that, court is ethical. It is, but in a legal sense. Okay, the ethics and morals must go by way of the law, and that's very difficult for the average person. They just come to court and, well, Your Honor, and my house got destroyed, and I had to fix it up. And the judges, they hear it, but they don't hear it. The judges hear you had money and you didn't pay this court order alimony or child support. You fixed up your house. Now, I know you think that that's a noble thing, and I know you think that that's supposed to, breed a sympathy in everybody here, including your ex-wife. However, this thing boils down to money, and it boils down to regulation. And the regulations by way of a court order. So, Mr. Snyder, you had a court order to pay money Okay, regardless of what it's called, child support or spousal support or alimony, it's money. Sir, you had money. And you were ordered to pay child support or in this case, spousal support, and you spent the money fixing up your home. See, we don't care about, the money. We care about where the money went. See, you had money, but the money went to your home. And it went to the home before it went to the wife. We ordered you to pay the wife. And so in a court of law, that's priority. So, sir, we find you in contempt of court. See, he messed himself up. He should have never went to court and spoke on that house. He should have never went to court and spoke on how he spent his money in that house, and that broke him. Now, he was broke. But he got broke spending money on other than the ex-wife. And that's what got him messed up. So there'll be more to come about family law. And I know the previous recording before this one, I dealt with family law issues. And I guess I'll be dealing with a lot of family law issues in these broadcasts and presentation because so many people are dealing with them. However, in all legal jurisdictions, criminal or civil, there is remedy and recourse. I don't care if it's criminal or civil, there is legal remedy and recourse. And you need to know that. You may have to search for it, but it's there. And I'm living proof, people. I'm living proof. Never went to law school a day in my life. As a matter of fact, I've never gone to college a day in my life. But I prevailed. And I prevailed in a behemoth of a system that is known, especially for men in family law cases, known for spitting out the souls, like spitting out watermelon seeds after eating watermelon. And I'm going to talk about Ethan Hawke and his alimony situation with Miss Uma Thurman later on. The time is of the essence as always. But anyway, people, I started this show out this way in response to a friend noticing that I was AWOL and that the first two presentations attempted to deal with inquiries. And this particular person said to Hootie, look, we know you're busy. I don't know what you're going through, but I know you're going through something. So just do a random talk, man. People loved your random talks on YouTube. Just talk. We need the information. When you talk to Hootie, not only are you going to tell us about your personal experiences, but you're going to drop those nuggets in between. And you've always done that in your articles and your videos. And when you did lectures, you talk and you share personal things. But within it, we learn. Because you educate. So just do your new Spreaker.com podcast that way. And I listened in and I took it to heart because it's been a minute. It's really been a minute. And the views, how do I say this here? Because it's not really views. You're not really viewing, you're listening. So the listening stats have increased and the followers have increased. So I'm like, man, I really better do something. So that's why I decided to do this particular podcast or broadcast in a random talk way that I used to do on YouTube. So that's why I started out the way that I did. So just wrapping up on the whole AWOL people, I got my boys, I relocated, had to get more space for them, get things together for them. They're going to be homeschooled, so I got to get all these computers set up. They're going to be homeschooled. They're going to do public schooling here in California, but it's going to be online. We have something called Connections California, which is an online public school. It's totally free. I think it's awesome. Your children get to stay at home and they get to learn state-sanctioned things. Now, because you guys know who I am and how I get down with information and education, my boys will have, daddy-based education. So they'll learn the things of the matrix. They'll learn the things of the state of California. They'll learn all that stuff. But more importantly, they will learn the real deal of life. They will learn the real deal of the matrix. I am not opposed to public school. Now, I am opposed to vaccinations, and that's a big reason why I will not send my boys to public school here in the state of California due to SB 277 passing several years ago. That has made vaccinations mandatory in order to enter public school. And here's a trip, people. even though a lot of the online homeschooling programs in the state of California don't involve attending a physical school, a physical classroom, they still have those vaccination requirements simply because it's a public school. See, this goes back to law. So, if you read the California Health and Safety Code and our education code, public is very important. Very in public. Law, people, you guys gotta learn law. You have to learn law, because our downfall in this corporation that was formerly a nation is the citizens don't understand law. So even though it's homeschooling, it's online homeschooling, it's technically online public schooling. You see, the word public is in there. And because the word public is in there, it attaches to SB 277 pertaining to the vaccination. However, there is a difference with the homeschooling, the online homeschooling, is that you don't have to vaccinate your children. The spiritual religious exemption still applies. And of course, it makes sense because, if your child is unvaccinated and doesn't go to school, then what's the problem? Technically, they're at home. It's private, but the whole internet access makes it public. When you start dealing with their teachers and when you log into their website, that's public. That's their property. And so therefore it is public. But they're not stupid. So they know that a lot of people that homeschool are homeschooling because they are averse to vaccinations, inoculations, such as myself. So they know the program wouldn't work if they were requiring people to have their children vaccinated while not even going to school. Because, the whole issue was dealing with unvaccinated children being a threat to other school children. But it's so stupid, people, when you think about it, because, for example, if you have 500 students, right? 500 students, 499 are vaccinated and one is not. Where's the logic in that one unvaccinated child being a threat to 499 vaccinated school children? Where's the logic? Where's the logic, people? What it says, the statement that is made, is that the vaccination or vaccinations, plural, because it's not just one, there are several, but these vaccinations, these inoculations, plural, are ineffective. You mean to tell me that you got 499 students who have been inoculated, who have been vaccinated, which means they're supposed to be protected from quote unquote disease, mostly so-called viral infections or viruses. They're supposed to be protected from these viruses. And then one child who's unvaccinated poses the threat. So what good is the inoculation? What good is the vaccination? I know I've digressed. But you got to pay attention, especially if you're here in the state of California, to the word public with the online schooling. And if you are considering it, you're going to run into the whole vaccination thing. But when you talk to them on the phone, at least with Connections California, they'll explain that there is the religious, spiritual exemption form that has to be signed by a religious head. And so you can get a local minister. I'm a spiritual guru, spiritual counselor, so I get to sign mine. And that's just for the public schooling part. And again, people, come on. Y'all know I know that I'm a product of the public school system here, in the state of California. I went through it. I didn't really learn much, that could benefit me in life. I'm thankful that I do know the basics, additions and subtraction, multiplication, division, those basic things. But a lot of that stuff, man, that, I spent a lot of time, invested in by force, by compulsion, I haven't really used it in life. I hear a lot of my college grad friends stating that what they went to school for, they're not able to use in life. Everything is about life, people. These lessons are about life. They're for life. Education is for life. Because when you're out of school, people, you got to live. You got to live. You got to live life when you're out of school. You're not in school. As far as an institution, that is, you're not in school every day of your life. But when you understand that life is about learning, you're in school every single day, wherever you go. Man, you're in school. You're learning. When you get in a relationship, you're learning. It's akin to a classroom. When you have children, when you have a family, that's school. You're learning. You're learning by way of experiences. When you go to court and deal with your adversaries and deal with judges and the bailiff and the clerks, man, that's school. These are experiences by which you get to learn. Now, of course, you don't have to learn. It benefits you to learn. But you're getting experiences for life. You know, when you do something that just happens to be against the law or quote unquote breaking the law, and you learn that lesson, you grow. Because this is life, people. You go to court one day, but you're still alive. You could end up in court again in your life. So you go to court and you learn. Okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. Or the next time, I'm not going to just give away my rights. Or the next time, I'm going to cross-examine this cop. Or the next time, I'm going to use the discovery process that Tahuti's always telling people they should consider using. So you learn. As the maestro, as Pops used to say, we live and we learn. Pops would always say, yes, son, just keep living. Just keep living. You'll learn. I mean, that was my Pops, man. Here's a guy who had to drop out in the 10th grade in order to work the fields in Mississippi. I mean, my peeps on the paternal side were, just very, very, very poor. As a matter of fact, the part of Mississippi they're from is just barren land. I went there a couple of years ago, and I was like, oh, my goodness. It was just horrible. It doesn't even exist anymore. Well, I think there's like 100-something people, but I didn't see anything. Like all the houses are gone, what have you. And it's like, damn, Pops. So anyway, I can understand, this man dropped out in the 10th grade in order to work, to help his family out. However, this was a man who was real big on his children learning. Man, he was real big on education, boy. I mean, when we would ditch school, play hooky from school, I mean, man, we really got it. The maestro, he didn't play that. We could not be like him. He wasn't having it. We had to excel. The 10th grade wasn't going to be enough. It wasn't going to be good enough for us. Maybe for him because of circumstances, but for his children, and he had to say it in our circumstances, he wasn't letting that ride. So we excelled in the public school, especially in the earlier parts, of our educational tenure here, elementary school. For the most part, it declines in the latter years, junior high school, not necessarily for like everybody, but just in general, and especially with African American males. So that's why you have the disproportionately high dropout rates of African American males, as opposed to, other groups, other races. It changes in high school. We begin to see that, for the most part, we can't relate to it. We don't see the value in it, the interest. How is this going to help us? What have you? A lot of times we can't relate to the teacher. We can't relate to the materials. I mean, a lot goes on. And I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, so, we had a lot of the police, the voluntary police interactions. We were, man, it was crazy. We were so, I don't know if that messed up my broadcast, but my phone rang in the midst of my broadcast, and that happened at a time I was looking for a word to use, dealing with growing up in South Central Los Angeles and LAPD and also the LA County Sheriffs having us under the scope. And I was pulled over all the time. We got pulled over all the time. Just high school students going to school, you know. So, but anyway, all of that stuff there, you know, and I probably sound a little incoherent there. Please excuse me. But it's so many things that play a role in urban school children that just happen to be male, especially black and brown males, whereby we don't see the value in it and we drop out, you know, or we slack off or what have you. But anyway, the maestro wasn't having it. He didn't care about what was going on with the police. As a matter of fact, he taught us how to deal with the police. You know, you always say, you know, yes, sir. You know, keep your hands on the steering wheel. You know, Pops always gave us the 411, you know, that necessary information in order to survive in South Central, like the name of that Ice Cube song, How to Survive in South Central. Yeah, back in those days, like in present-day Chicago, we really did have to know how to survive South Central. And my father was very instrumental. And because we had to survive in South Central, you know, we had to survive in school. We had to survive in going or getting to school because it was crazy. You know, a lot of people didn't make it to school. A lot of people got shot along the way to school. It was crazy in South Central Los Angeles. I can greatly relate to present-day Chicago, where this past weekend, what is today? Today is August 7th. This past weekend in Chicago, it was reported that 60 people were killed in Chicago. That's like a person every hour. And I can relate to that because it was crazy like that growing up in South Central Los Angeles. And people were moving targets, man. People were moving targets. Many people were just going to school. Many people were just leaving school. My good friend James Toole had just graduated and he left school, went home, and was shot 9 times in the cut. Cut is short for cutlass. 9 times, just left school and was murdered. And this was after graduation. So it was crazy like that, people. So I can so relate to what's going on in the city of Chicago. Very unfortunate. But I can relate. So let's see here. So I did cover my boys, people. I do apologize for going AWOL, but that's what happened. I got my boys. I mean, man, it's great. You know, I love them. We got a new life together. It's awesome. And if you're going through a family court matter or even just a child support matter, I gotta say this because I hear a lot of men, especially African American men, who they go AWOL on their children in the process. And I tweeted a couple of months ago about witnessing certain men walking out of their children's lives because they were just tired. You know, they were just tired. These were grown men that were beat down. I mean, they were beat down, and they gave it their all. I mean, I witnessed that. You know, I witnessed men driving to court, you know, from residing an hour or two away from the court, but going to court. I witnessed men going there and fighting for their children, but just being beat down and giving up and saying, hey, you know what? I'm done. F this stuff. I'm done. You know, hey, take care of my son. You know, tell him I love him. Tell him I'm going to miss him. Man, I heard it all. It was just so devastating to just hear, like, man, and you know, of course the children are not there in court, but you think, you know, like, what is this little boy? What is this little girl going to think? Pops is just gone, and they don't, and see the children, see the women are the gatekeepers in most cases. Sometimes it's the men because men do have custody, like myself, you know, but of course I'm not like a lot of these imbalanced human beings that use children as pawns. But, you know, women are the gatekeepers, you know, so they get to tell a child whatever they want to pertaining to another father that was just beat down and decided to just bounce. Not that he doesn't love the child. He's trying to be in the child's life. And you got a woman and in many cases, an attorney aiding the woman, aiding and abetting the woman in court to prevent that man from seeing the child. And you know, a lot of these men can't afford attorneys, you know, and they do the best they can do and they lose. And so it's like to them, like, F it. You know, I can't do anything. It's done. I don't have any power. I'm getting crushed by her and this attorney, or I'm getting crushed by her because she just happens to be a female and the court is biased towards me. And the truth about that really is it boils down to who is the custodial parent versus the non-custodial parent. And a lot of times, that gender thing comes up really because in most cases, and at least 70% or 3/4 of the cases, females are the custodial parents. So if you study the family code, you're not going to see where, gender is relevant. It's really not relevant in the family code, and it's not relevant in the case law. Now, what is relevant is custodial parent versus non-custodial parent. That's very relevant. And women just happen to be the custodial parent in most cases. And family court favors the custodial parent, especially in where finances are concerned. They favor family court favors the custodial parent, which just happens to be females. And so when you don't understand law, all you see is, as a man, I'm speaking as a man, all you see as a man is the women are winning. The women are winning. But it's because they are the custodial parents. And I know there are men who are in situations where it's 50-50. Man, we got joint custody, man. So why am I paying child support? Because you have joint custody, but you're not the primary caretaker. That child resides with the mother in the eyes of the court because mom is the primary caretaker. So in the eyes of the court, that child resides with mom, even though that child spent 50% of its time with dad. So you have to see through legal lens. See, what's key in a joint situation is who is the primary caretaker. And that's very important for purposes of finances. So if a person is going to contact a government administrative agency for financial support, for example, it's very important to know who is the primary caretaker of the children for purposes of government administrative assistance. And that includes welfare, or I think they call it public assistance now. That, we want to be politically and legally correct. It's public assistance or government assistance. Public assistance or government assistance. I'm from the old school, and we called it welfare, but welfare is not a nice term these days. But anyway, it boils down to who is the primary caretaker. So you have to learn these things, man. And look, I get it. I get it. I know law is complex. I know it's challenging. It's like a foreign language. I get it. But like they tell us, and they meaning government people, your politicians, your judges, your magistrates, your commissioners, ignorance of the law is no excuse, and you got to learn. So men, if you're in family court, hang in there for your children. Just hang in there and don't be rash to making a decision to bounce from the child's life, forever, because this attorney is handing you your backside on a silver platter, which doesn't feel good. You're going to court, you're being humiliated. And, you see the women there, in the courtroom that I was in, which was under the second judge. And that's where most of the minorities were. And you would see that when the man got crushed, the woman, man, unfortunately, they were, black women, African-American females, and they were just laughing. You could just see them like, yeah, I got you. Like, yeah, I won. I mean, it was just horrible. But you understand, both of them are ignorant, both are underdeveloped, both are pretty much the same, It's just that the woman, she put herself in a position to be custodial parent or primary caretaker. So, things go her way. Even if she doesn't have an attorney, she's prevailing 9 times, out of 10. And again, court is adversarial. It's a battle. They're opponents. And so the mother is, she's the opponent of the father. It's crazy because these two people came together at one point and exchanged everything, energy and bodily fluids and, and secrets and everything. Just exchange things. And they're enemies. They end up as enemies, We're talking astrological seventh house, marriage, partnerships, relationships, but also open enemies and divorce. And so that's just naturally tied into marriage or partnerships or relationships. Divorce is tied in. It's a seed. It's a seed. So within relationship is that seed of possible separation, divorce, dissolution, whatever you want to call it, severing of the union. That seed is there. That seed is there. And so what people have to understand is they don't want to water that seed. They don't want to put light on that seed because it will grow. And it will grow so huge that it will sever, it will end that relationship. And I'm talking about above the surface, and it could end up in court. Let me talk about Ethan Hawke in this situation with Uma Thurman. I actually like both of them. And, as a matter of fact, I believe they were both in Gattaca, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they both were in the movie Gattaca, which is one of my favorite dystopian movies. I enjoy dystopian movies. They were in Gattaca. But, I didn't even know that they were married. I didn't know they were married. I was like, wow, Ethan ended up with Uma Thurman. And I like Uma Thurman. As a matter of fact, Uma is a Taurus, I believe. Yeah, Uma is a Taurus. And I just recently rewatched Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2. And Uma was good in that movie. But anyway, I digress. Ethan Hawke has to pay her alimony. Now, from what I understand, they were only married for 7 years. And I'm assuming they were married in the state of California. And I always do that, people, because actors, Hollywood, Los Angeles, like it just all goes together. But I could be wrong. But anyway, I do assume that, most of your actors and actresses reside here in Los Angeles. Hollywood is in the backyard of Los Angeles. So I just assume that actors are, they're Los Angelinos. And so I always put my hands on the California law, the California Family Court, applicable to the residents of the state of California. It doesn't matter if you're an actor or an actress, you are a resident in the state of California. And yeah, you may have money and the spot, you may be in the spotlight, you may have the shine and the fame and the fortune and all of that, but you're still subject to these laws. And Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman are subject to the laws of the state of California. If in fact it was the state of California, I could be wrong. It could be New York. I don't know, but I'm just assuming. And I'm assuming just to drive this point home. So even if it's not applicable to them, if you're in the state of California, it could be applicable to you. In the state of California, we have something called the short-term marriage and the long-term marriage. Now, if it was state of California and they were only married for 7 years, under California law, Ethan should have only paid Uma 3.5 years. Because the law states that alimony in a short-term marriage is half the duration of the marriage. Now, 10 years or more, if you're married 10 years or more, that's a long-term marriage. Now, that hurts because that's for life. Or until the woman gets married. Remarried, I should say. That's until the woman gets remarried. So 10 years or more, long-term marriage. Under 10 years, short-term marriage. 7 years, legally, and in the state of California, is a short-term marriage. That's 3.5 years. So I'm like, my man, Ethan, is still paying alimony. Like, what happened? And really, in another state, most states follow California's lead. So in not all states, but in most states, it's the same. It's short-term marriage. 7 years, short-term marriage. And so Ethan has to act in movies that he really doesn't care about. And I know that's eating away at his soul. I know it is, because I read Ethan's words in, was it the GQ magazine? There's a tabloid or a magazine that just came out, and they interviewed Ethan Hawke. And he just gave the 411 on himself. He was very honest, man. The dude was just very blunt with the honesty. He sold out, and he sold out to pay bills. I feel for that dude. That's slavery. That's peonage. He's a peon. He's working to pay for another human being. And we know Uma is, Uma got it like that. We know that. All those residuals for those movies that she was in. But still, California law doesn't care about that. It has its spousal support laws. And Ethan is working. He is acting in movies, commercial films that he does not care to act in, but he admits he's doing it to pay his bills, and his bills includes alimony to Uma Thurman. That's a bummer. Man, it's sad, Brendan Fraser, Ethan Hawke. I mean, there's a whole list. Marriage is no joke. Paris says in a song about health insurance, he ends the song by saying this health insurance is some cold shit. Well, I say this marriage or this marriage business, this marriage stuff, this marriage situation is some cold shit. Man. But yeah, Ethan is, he's been reduced to a peon. But there is remedy and recourse. If Ethan could prove that Uma is in a better financial position than him and has a standard of living, he could fight that. He could fight that alimony and get it lowered. I'm quite sure that he could actually get it terminated, depending on the facts, depending on the circumstances. People, just because you have an attorney doesn't mean that you're going to prevail. And attorneys don't know everything. One of the reasons why I was able to do what I did in my particular case was because I knew more than the attorney. Now, Tahui, how can you say that? Easily, because I'm not just limited to family law. And I'll never put any type of law above the United States Constitution. So, I've learned the art of fighting without fighting, judicial jeet kune do. And so that gives me the advantage over lawyers. Now, yeah, lawyers are going to know more about family law, like in general. Judges too. But I'll tell you, and this is factual. In my case, I actually filed a motion. I brought up a motion that the judge had never heard of. And of course, I think this judge is new. He's only been on the bench for several years. And I recognize that I was the first person before that particular judge to request a particular motion. And he had to go look that motion up. And when he came back, he said, granted. You can hear that motion on June 29th. He granted it. It was because I got it out of the family code. And I was like, wow. And this has been nearly like a 3-year process. And I have found things in the family code that I would bring to the attention, of the ex and her attorneys, and they would have to research it. And so that's why I say I have the advantage, because I studied the entire code. And so I have access to more remedy and recourses than most attorneys. Now, I'm speaking generally. I know there's some attorneys out there that, they've been doing family law, for 20, 30, 40 something years. So there's always the exception to the rule. But I just haven't ran across an attorney just in general that has known the entire book. They know what they know, but they don't know the entire book. And they don't know all that other stuff, that extra stuff. Like, I got this book written by the judge, the supervising judge of the Los Angeles Superior Court. I have a book that he co-authored with the Honorable William H. Hogaboom. And this book is awesome. It's the family law. What is it called? It's called the Family Law Practice Guide. It's 3 or 4 volumes, and it covers everything about family law. The California Practice Guide for Family Law. It has the forms in it, how to fill out the forms and the various form numbers, case law. It got some good stuff in there, and it's 3 or 4, possibly even 5 volumes. And it is replete with everything you need to know about family law. And then you got your independent research. I do independent research. That Scorpio attribute is very prominent in my chart. Scorpio likes to dig deep. Scorpio deals with the deep side of life, the dark side of life. And that's applicable to me pertaining to research in general. But in this particular case, I'm talking about legal research. And that Scorpion influence, man, it is so prominent. And I research everything. I researched because I researched things that you're not even going to find in the California Family Code. Even the annotated code. The annotated code is great because of the case law. So anytime you're studying law, the various statutes, the various codes, you want the annotated codes because that's the one that the judges use. Good lawyers use the annotated code of a particular code. They use the annotated one, and that's what I use. And unfortunately, my favorite legal bookstore, the best law bookstore west of the Mississippi, the law bookstore, and I believe it was in Anaheim, closed down. It was either in Buena Park or Anaheim. It was in Orange County, so it was about like 45 minutes away from me. They just recently closed their doors. I called one day because I was going to go down there to purchase some more books. I'm so glad I went down there about a year and a half ago and purchased all the law books that I did. But I called them because I was going to go down there and pick up some more California codes. And there was a message. A message came on. And it said that, they regret that after 25 years of being in business, they've decided to close their doors. And some of their books are available online, but that's short-lived too. So, yeah, that was pretty devastating news for me to hear. And there was a great law bookstore. I keep saying bookstore, law bookstore, because, every bookstore doesn't sell law books. But there was a great law bookstore downtown LA. It was small, but you could get your California codes there. They shut down as well, too. And I know a lot of that has to do with the internet, so I just, have to spend time on the internet to find what I'm looking for. And I have. Yeah, I have. I get everything that I need. Thomson Reuters is good, too, to get the codes in all states, not just California, but all states. Okay, man, this clock is ticking. And I do these random talks. The time just go by so fast, and that's why I haven't done a random talk in years. I am going to take a swig of some water there. Man, it is 10:33 a.m. I got to get ready to get my behind to a place where I can make some more products. But anyway, people, yeah, you can pretty much find what you need legally online. Amazon.com is good. eBay is good. I mean, you can pretty much find what you need. Law books come out every year because law is a business. It's an industry and they make money. The publication companies make a fortune, because of these new statutes that we believe are laws. They come out every year. And so, you have the new books, California Family Code 2016, California Family Code 2017, California Family Code 2018, California Family Code 2019. They're making laws every year, and that's keeping the legal book publishers in business and bringing them in a fortune. Every year we get new law books, and that's never going to change as long as, there's a United States of America and 50 states of the former Union. That's never going to change. Okay, real quickly here, I'm probably working with 10 or 15 minutes time here. God, there was something the driver's license suspension and child support. Now, I'm not for sure at the moment if I covered that in the previous broadcast or podcast, but the driver license suspension and child support, that's pretty big, especially here in California. If you are in a child support case opened up by the local child support agency and you have received a notice of intent to suspend, before they suspend your license, the Department of Motor Vehicles always sends you a notice of intent to suspend. And that is pursuant to the child support agency sending the Department of Motor Vehicles a request to suspend the license. A separate administrative agency, so all they can do is request, but they're in cahoots. It's all state, whatever state you reside in, New York, California, Illinois, what have you. It's a state cabal, if you will. They all work together. So the local child support agency will send a request to the Department of Motor Vehicles to notify you of an intent to suspend your driver's license. Child support agency can't suspend your license because they didn't issue the driver's license. The Department of Motor Vehicles can suspend your license because they are the ones who issue the license. So this is why the local child support agency requests from its fellow or co-agency, which is the Department of Motor Vehicles, to suspend your driver's license as punishment for your inability or failure to pay child support. That has to go down first. It has to comport with state and federal due process of law, even on the administrative level. So when you're dealing with the local child support agency, the Department of Motor Vehicles, or any other administrative agency, you still have due process, because all of these agencies on the local level and even on the state level, they have to comply with the law of the land, the supreme law of the land, which is the United States Constitution. So you always have due process of law, okay? And that is protected by the 14th Amendment. Now, we get the Bill of Rights through the 14th Amendment, and this is what a lot of people don't know. It's erroneous to go to court and talk about the Bill of Rights, because really the Bill of Rights pertains to the federal level of government. However, through the 14th Amendment, we can bring the 10 Bill of Rights on the state level. So this is why no matter what you're arguing, you always bring up the 14th Amendment. Now, I'm not talking about how the 14th Amendment made us artificial entities, what have you. And of course, I can get into that, later on. But it serves a twofold purpose. Yes, it did convert us into artificial entities, at its core, at its root, but above the ground, above the surface, what it did was it allowed for the Bill of Rights to be argued on the state level. Because, see, there's a state constitution in addition to a federal constitution. We have two separate jurisdictions here, people: federal and state. Federal and state. You don't want to, be in a state jurisdiction and talking federal law, unless you're strong arming, like the United States Supreme Court. So even though you may be in a state court, you could bring up legal precedent by the United States Supreme Court, which a state court is bound to comply with. And that goes for the state Supreme Court, the state appellate courts, and the state trial court. They all must comply with the decisions of the United States Supreme Court. So you really need to understand law so that you will know how to argue. See, in state court, you want to use your state constitution. And you want to back up your state constitution with the federal constitution, but by way of the 14th Amendment. So if you're going to argue the federal First Amendment, the federal Second Amendment, the federal, we don't really need the Third Amendment, but the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, what have you, you always want to include the 14th Amendment. Always. You always want to include the 14th Amendment. It's so much good stuff to talk about. And you know what? I got to call this dude who suggested I do these random talk broadcasts, because I get carried away. It's so much good information, but just so little time. This illusion called time. In my world, it just goes by so fast because I'm so busy doing a lot of things that I love. It's really not enough time in the day for me because of all that I love. I get things done. But my point is, when you're really living, man, and you enjoy what you do and you enjoy your life, a 24-hour day only seems like a 12-hour day. You love it, and the time just goes. I mean, you guys have heard the saying or the phrase, funny how time flies when you're having fun. Well, that's applicable to my life every day. And, even sharing information like this, I enjoy it, and the time just goes by so fast, and I don't know how much time I've used in recording today's broadcast. I'm just flowing, and then I talk about certain things like law, and I'm quite sure it's obvious, to hear that, I'm fond of law. I truly enjoy law. It really benefits my Mars and Gemini placement in my chart. Law is very important to me. I enjoy it. It stimulates me. It empowers me. I love law, and there's just so much to talk about pertaining to the law. Earlier, I spoke about criminal justice and, the police, and I got so much to say about, the criminal justice in America, the police interactions, and why African Americans are being treated the way that they are and what they can do to stop it. It's just so freaking much. Just remember this, people. When it comes to law, I don't care if it's criminal or civil, there's always remedy and recourse. All law offers remedy and recourse, just like divine law. All law offers remedy and recourse. But let me make this point here before I wrap up, pertaining to the driver's license suspension and child support. Now, when the Department of Motor Vehicles, sends you, usually the non-custodial parent that has failed, which is in most cases the inability to pay child support, when that agency sends you a notice of intent to suspend your license, you have a right to due process of law. And usually there's a form that is entitled request for review. And that request for review is not with the Department of Motor Vehicles, because they're just doing their part with their co-agency, which is the child support agency. The child support agency is the one that you have an issue with, or they have an issue with you. And of course, it's over money. And so part of their enforcement powers is to suspend your license, and not just your driver's license. If you have a liquor license, they can suspend your liquor license, any license that you have, a barber's license, a real estate license, any license issued by the competent authority, which is the state, they can suspend. And if they claim that you owe them money, they will do it. But first, giving you due process of law. They would never suspend your license without giving you the due process of law. And it's your duty to be vigilant and look over those forms and read those forms. Read those forms, whatever forms they may be, a word for word. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Everything that you need to know is in those forms and the code. In this case, the family code. I mean, it's some good stuff in there. And you guys know I was dealing with this crazy stuff in my case. In every situation, it was erroneous. It was erroneous. And I haven't been in the child support system in a while now. Again, I have physical custody of my boys. And I got something from the local child support agency saying that I had arrears in $6,600 something, $6,000, almost $7,000. And of course, when I called, they said, "Oh no, well we show $360." I'm like, how can that be? I don't owe anything. And the way I set up my agreement, because my ex-wife actually owes me $23,000, and I let it go. I let it go because I made a decision that I was going to choose what was most important to me, and that was my creativity. I can generate way more money through my creativity than collecting $23,000 from a person that is going to give every excuse in the world of why she doesn't have it or can't pay it, what have you. And it's like, you know what? The most important thing to me is getting my boys and, and staying in my zone of creativity. That's it. You can't put a price on that 23K. But there was overpayment in my case of $23,000. And I had one of the coolest judges in the state of California and Los Angeles County in particular, that was going to let me hear my request for order that I never got to hear under the judge number 2, biased judge, very biased, that I got rid of. It was just too much, like the guardian ad litem told me, who was friends with the judge. It was just too much progesterone, too much estrogen. So I had to disqualify her. So I never got a chance to have my request for order that would have crushed this woman. And the attorney, they were playing games, and the judge was helping them out, delaying the case. So, but I was still paying the money. I was just, no big deal. Bloop, let me just pay. But I knew I was actually setting myself up for a situation of overpayment and then having to go back and get that money, recoup that money. But things took, just a different turn. There was just a different, twist of fate in this case here. And I ended up getting things that I just didn't expect to get immediately or right now. There are so many things going on in this case that has me just looking at myself like, wow, like you really are a Taurus, dude. Like you really do persevere, man. Like knowledge really is power, because it's like, man, it's August and my life is a way in certain respects I just didn't see, people. I mean, I just didn't see. And I was dealing with an entire law firm, man. And I was like Bruce Lee, in Fists of Fury, and some of those other movies where this dude is fighting 20, 30 something people. That's how I was. And I had to persevere. And these people came at me with everything on the orders of this woman. There's a phrase, hell hath no fury like a woman scorn. That's what I was dealing with. And not just a woman scorn, but an ungrounded a woman, an emotionally unstable woman, a psychologically unstable woman. So add that in the equation. Hell hath no fury like an ungrounded, emotionally unstable, in other words, woman. And that's very true. And that's what I dealt with. And the attorneys were like little dogs, her little guard dogs that she could just sick on me. And they came with everything. And I'll be sharing a lot of the things that they came at me with and how I converted them into things that would end up putting them and her on the ropes. And that played a role in me being where I am in my life pertaining to this case, this divorce case, family law case right now. I'm here to tell you, knowledge is power, and it is very true pertaining to law. Okay. Request your review with the local child support agency. They're going to deny it if you owe the money. If it's there and the arrears and all of that, I'm telling you right now, they're going to deny it. But you got to play the role. Okay? And you got to follow the procedures. Now, you're going to do it. I can hear you. Now, well, why would I do it if I'm going to lose? Because there's a process. See, when you lose to the local child support agency in their review, and their review can take 30 days, 60 days. I'm going to let you know, people, here in the state of California, it could take up to 6 months. But usually when a driver's license is about to be suspended, they do move fast. They do move very, very quick. So when they shoot that down, and if you owe the money, listen, if you owe the money, they're going to shoot it down. It's a wrap. Okay. Now, what they will do, they may not even do it. In most cases, you have to know how to bring this to their attention. You have to learn to negotiate. They'll shoot it down, but you can negotiate with them. You can negotiate to pay 25% of your monthly child support amount. Whatever that amount is, you can negotiate with them to pay 25%. You can say, hey, listen, I don't have the money, but, I'll get 25% of my child support money. I'll get 25% of that amount, and I'll pay that to you. And everything else that I owe will be arrears. But you will not move against me. There will be no contempts. There will be no driver's license suspensions, etc. You can negotiate with the local child support agency to pay 25% of that child support amount. Now, if you're in a position where you cannot pay, they're going to shoot you down. They're not going to negotiate with you. They're going to just say, I'm sorry, we're sorry. And that's that. And they're going to let the Department of Motor Vehicles suspend your license. However, as I said earlier, there's a process. After your request for review is denied by the local child support agency in the particular county that agency is located in, counties are very important pertaining to local child support agencies. You're going to request a judicial review. You're going to request a judicial review. You're going to get yourself before a judge where you have a better chance to negotiate. Judges are far more understanding than the local child support agency and their attorneys. You're going to request a judicial review, and you'll get to argue your financial status before a judge. You can also argue your position versus the custodial parent's position. Hey, I work. She stays at home. I have these responsibilities. She lives with her mom. You'll get to explain all of that. And then the judge can send an order to the Department of Motor Vehicles to let you have that license contingent upon you paying, all your back payments, all of your arrears. Maybe, $100 a month or what have you. A lot of times money is not even involved. You just have to negotiate. You just have to know how to express yourself to the judge, explain yourself to the judge, your situation. And 9 times out of 10, if you know law and know the arguments, and I can help you, I can teach you to learn those arguments, 9 times out of 10, you will prevail. You'll have a court order that will not punk the DMV, but, it'll little vice grips. The court will serve as a vice grip, against the testicles of the local child support agency, if you will, and they'll back off of you. In law we call it mandamus. We call it prohibition. The court is prohibiting an agency to do something. The court is mandating, that a local agency do a particular thing that the court has instructed it to do. So that's the process there, people. Don't just give up, man. They suspended my license. I can't drive, or I could possibly get arrested. And that is true. But let me say this in closing, because, man, the time is gone, people. And see, random talks. See, that's why my random talks on YouTube were 3, 4, and 5 hours, people. It's just so much information. But let me say this quickly. Here in the state of California, let's just say your license does get suspended, right? And of course you shouldn't be driving, but you are, because you're in survival mode and hey, you're doing what you feel you have to do. And you get pulled over by law enforcement out here in the state of California. Just know this, people. And in the future, I'll go way more into detail. Right now, I'm constricted by time, this illusion of time. And that's a reality right now pertaining to some things that I got to do. Here in the state of California, if you get pulled over by law enforcement officials for driving with a suspended license, under the vehicle code, they can impound your vehicle. Under the vehicle code here in the state of California, law enforcement can impound your vehicle. But if your license has been suspended pursuant to the California Family Code, law enforcement, yes, they can prevent you from driving, but they don't have the authority to impound your vehicle. Now, in the future, I'll go more into details, okay? There is a particular provision in the California Family Code that states what I just said. And that's why it's so important for you to learn law. Oh, my goodness, so important. But, man, my time is up, people. Because, man, I got products to make. I got so much stuff to do. I got to make this new green tea antioxidant cream. It's, Lord have mercy, it's a lot, people, but I enjoy it all. I enjoy law. I enjoy these broadcasts here on Spreaker.com. I enjoy studying. I'm studying law by watching the TV show Suits. Isn't that crazy? In a good way, of course. That's awesome. I think that's awesome. I got all the legal shows. I just get so excited, man, looking at my DVDs. I have Hulu too, so if I'm on the road, I can watch certain shows. Hulu has a lot of the television shows, even the old one. But, I'm a tourist, I'm physical. So, I like to hold things. So I have the actual DVDs, and I have those great legal TV shows, which is part of my legal studies. That's how I learned law, watching shows like Suits and Raising the Bar, Conviction, Canterbury's Law, The Good Fight, Petrocelli, LA Law, Law and Order, Matlock, Damages, The Defenders, The Young Lawyers, Sam Benedict, Franklin and Bash, Newton's Law, Fairly Legal, Chicago Justice, Boston Legal, The Practice. Oh my goodness, man, it's wild, but I love it. I love it. I know you guys are listening like, wow, this dude is like just really hyped over these things. Well, because I enjoy these things, and hopefully you have some things in life that you enjoy. It may not be law. It may be fashion, it could be finances. It could be IT, what have you. But hopefully you too have something, that make you feel jubilant, and elated, that fuels you, that's your passion. Hopefully you too have it. Because I have it in so many areas, and man, people, life is wonderful. Life is wonderful. But at any rate, you know who you are. I want to thank you, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I would not have thought about doing a random talk here on Spreaker. So you know who you are. Props. Thank you for that there, because I don't know when I would have made a broadcast. At least, in the manner and style that I was aiming to do them in, reflected by the first two broadcasts or presentations here on Spreaker.com. So props to you. again, apologies to everybody for waiting, AWOL, but now you understand. It wasn't that I was just like, hey man, F the people, I'm about to do me. No, it wasn't any of that. I was just, dealing with some things, tying up some loose ends, and, just basking in the reward of having my children just handed to me. No fight, because I chose not to fight. There's something in Scripture. There's a particular Scripture, I should say. He that seeketh to lose shall save, and he that seeketh to save shall lose. And not that I was giving my boys up, but it's like, hey, listen, boom, I'm giving you the custody. And of course, I have my reasons, so it's like I gave. And in her mind, like, no, I'm keeping them from you because I'm punishing you. But that scripture comes to mind. He that seeketh to lose, he that seeketh to give up shall get. And that person that's seeking to hold, seeking to get shall lose. And that's what happened. So there was no court hearing. There was no ugly custody battle. I wasn't going to let that happen. I just wasn't. And now I understand why the movie Kramer versus Kramer, 1979, Kramer versus Kramer. Now I understand why that movie always resonated with me, even as a little boy. It's like I tapped into something that was letting me know that I was going to be dealing with such matters. And I did. And this wasn't the first time. I did it with the first wife. The first relationship, same thing, keeping the children from me and just trying to punish me through the children, so that's just how I learned that, a lot of, I know it sounds like we're attacking women and we're sexist and all that, but it's not, because I can show you a whole bunch of books written by women, women who have integrity and women who know right from wrong. And they can see what, certain women are doing with the children. Just like there's certain men who can see what men are doing, to women, because the women don't want to be with them. Certain people just have integrity, and they just write from a position, from a place of integrity, and truth is truth. It's just the facts, people. It's just the truth. And so if you got a problem with it, maybe you're on the wrong side of truth. Maybe you're on the wrong side. Which is why your life is probably in shambles, or, you're always arguing with people, or, just up in arms about things. Maybe you're on the wrong side of truth, which is falsehood, which is lies, so. But anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. Man, I apologize. I don't even know how this is going to sound. I don't know how this is going to sound, but I'm going to put it up, because I know the people are on me, and the anticipation is there. So I'm going to put it up, unedited. I just flowed. It's a random talk. And in a random talk, I'm all over the place dealing with random subject matter. But I hope that I still have it to synchronize and tie things together in coherent fashion, whereby you're able to extract useful information. Again, people, thank you so much for bearing with me while I was AWOL. And I really do have to leave now, so I'm going to end this broadcast. Peace and love to you all.